Practice 4 is about abandoning attachment in our life. And it's interesting because the kind of attachment that the Buddhists are talking about is based on craving a kind of illusory ground and grasping at the pleasures or senses of security that give that sense of possessing something or having something. This is contrasted by the modern Western psychological research on attachment theory, which I really think is inappropriately worded if we just shift cultures like that. It would be bonding theory. Bonding is very different. Bonding is necessary for our social relational development and health, and to have meaningful and intimate relationships. But attachment, as the Buddhists talk about it, as craving and grasping, and it's craving for that something with some kind of ignorance, some kind of ignoring, some kind of not knowing something about the nature of reality causes us to seek possessing things in ourselves and others and try to find happiness in external situations. And again, there's nothing wrong with the instinct. But as we progress on the spiritual path, we have to look at the ways in which craving and grasping that are kind of blind or not lucid, how they create unnecessary suffering. So the verse goes, old friends and relatives will separate. Possession gained with effort will be left behind. Consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body. To let go of this life is the practice of a bodhisattva. Now, certainly for a hermit, a mendicant, a yogi, a nun, a monk, anyone who's leaving societal practices to practice spirituality, this can be taken quite literally. But for those of us in the world, that's not sufficient. It's not a very helpful verse or stanza if we leave it there without commentary. Acknowledging impermanence is painful. When I first encountered the Buddha's teaching saying that we will encounter things we don't wish to, and we will lose things we do not want to be parted with, that everything that comes together must part, and everything that is born must die. These verses always haunted me because there's such an undeniable truth in them. I mean, after all, the Buddha, Lord Shakyamuni Buddha, or Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha, also died, as has every other human being since. And it's part of life. It's natural. It's part of being in nature and manifesting in these bodies. But to acknowledge that this life is impermanent and all that we know in it we will leave behind, or it will change even while we are in it, that takes tremendous honesty and courage. Why would we have such strength or courage to face a truth that may not serve our immediate well-being? Well, because it serves our greater long-term well-being. If we can see the impermanence of even the things we cherish the most, friends and relatives, partnerships and all of it. When we acknowledge that, it allows us to appreciate the preciousness of this moment and of our life. It's very important. Possessions gained with effort will be left behind. I mean, think of how much time we spend trying to build security and wealth and which is very relative depending on our particular means and our economics, but all of us are looking for a good situation that way, of course. And we go through a lot of work to acquire money, to have a roof over our heads, enough food, health care, possessions that are meaningful for our hobbies and dreams and businesses, and passing on homes if someone has a home, or to their children if they have children, or to whatever. So we go through a tremendous amount of effort to obtain these things. And of course, it makes a lot of sense while we're alive, while we're working, while we try to make a good life for ourselves. That to me is being bonded to ourselves and to our world in a healthy way and to trying to have a good life. But we know that none of this is something that we will take with us. And I think that that is one of these reminders again of it's not the actual desire for things that's problematic. It's the illusion that we crave to hold on to, the illusory ground, which always leads us astray. It's always out of touch with reality, and therefore it always leads to suffering. Maybe in our journey as humans, the veridical perception, meaning the accuracy of our perception, is very important spiritually. I mean, from a biological, evolutionary point of view, it's arguable that it's not at all important. It's actually, our perceptions are limited to give us fitness benefits and to be able to pass on our progeny, our lineage and physical lineage. But from beyond just surviving and just being in that animalistic cycle, we want to have meaningful lives. And the really interesting thing about that is that meaning is something that sees to the true nature of things and isn't fooled by false meanings, by illusions. So consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body. As there is a phrase in Tibet, everyone dies but no one is dead. And the idea is that our subtle body and awareness actually leave the physical body at death. We have this very lucid, dreamy, kind of psychedelic experience of all the energies of being in a realm that is here but not here. You're not visible to the human eye. But sometimes, this would explain why people think of ghosts and when people get stuck. And, this is also why we talk about, the cycle of life being like a day. You have your daytime, your nighttime, you're dreaming, sleeping, dreaming, and you're born and wake again. And that cycle happens ad nauseum, including the Big Bang, expansion, contraction, void, and then another Big Bang. So this idea of cyclical moon cycles, orbits, everything, that the consciousness that what we really are cannot be destroyed. It's called indestructible because it's the nature of reality in the Buddhist teachings. But often when we are attached to the idea of our consciousness being identified with this particular life, these friends, these possessions, and this body, especially with our sense of our body, we think a lot about time as about future and past. I've often said if we have a sense of a lucid dream body, we don't need a watch. We don't think of death because it's a quality of pure awareness, and there's not that kind of time natural countdown going on. In other words, if one arose out of their body after death and was in a lucid body, I don't think you would be thinking so much about your clock or time. What purpose would it have if the body that dies is not really the essence of consciousness, as is the belief or proposition in Buddhist practice that we can verify through practice? To let go of this life is the practice of a bodhisattva. So in other words, to let go of the illusory attachment to illusory ground. And it's subtle, right? Because if we have a lucid dream and we awaken in the dream and we think, wow, I'm lucid, we could also realize that that realization itself is another just dream appearance. There's not even a possessible realizer. There's just lucidity. And that is very free and very groundless, but incredible freedom and incredible openness. But that kind of experience is quite terrifying for us because we've become grounded in the five elements in this world of matter and energy that interplaying in the way they do. And so to practice throughout our life, letting go and dying in little ways each day, going to sleep with peace and surrender and relaxation and acceptance, calming down, feeling safe before we go to sleep, taking the time and making the effort to build a relationship to being alive where we can let go of our false sense of security again and again and come more and more into the present moment. And this is where creativity, playfulness, freedom really happen, because it's the timeless moment. It's the moment beyond past, present, future. It's the all-time, or the eternal present, or the fourth time, sometimes it's called. But this is the time of reality, and abandoning illusion is entering into that timeless realm that is expressed by time and appearances.